9:07, 7 past 9.
Jake Hartford and John Cass in for Bruce and Dan on WLS 890. Your calls, 591-8900.
Good morning, John.
Good morning, Jake.
Later on in the show, in the next hour, we're going to talk about the debate. We're going to preview the debate. We're also going to talk about, since it is on foreign policy, we have KT McFarland, who is a foreign policy expert working in previous administrations. And
a very seasoned expert as well. She's not just an academic. She worked in the foreign policy field for the Defense Department, for Caspar Weinberger, for others, and she's pretty grounded.
A lot of talk about how this has become a big campaign issue, being politicized, and it's really gotten bad.
The Obama people, Durbin, the Ram Father, and Axelrod went on the talk shows, playing the Chicago way, tough guys, basically threatening Romney with political harm if he brings up Libya, so we'll see.
Before we get to that, there's an interesting story this morning. Another change, Chick-Fil-A in Chicago. Are they coming to Chicago proper or not? That is the question. They are in various suburbs around the area. There's one near me in Orland Park. And
in Lombard.
And they were going to come to Chicago in the Logan Square area. And then they got into the whole issue of the nonprofit that Chick-fil-A has, the founder has given to groups that support traditional marriage.
This is shocking. Very radical viewpoint.
And that didn't go over well here in Chicago because Chicago values are such that Chicago favors gay marriage.
Right, although I guess President Obama didn't favor it. When Chick-fil-A was supporting families, Obama didn't support gay marriage and only recently has changed. So I don't know what to make of Chicky Moreno.
Well, what happened is apparently he thinks they weren't going to give their nonprofit was going to cease giving money to groups that support traditional marriage, and apparently that's not happening. So he's all upset, and he may block this. The restaurant.
He goes by the name of Proco Joe Moreno, but in the column I like to call him Chicky because he's against the chicken sandwiches, which I think are rather tasty, and especially if you go into a Chick-fil-A and ask for the Sodom and Gomorrah meal with the Leviticus sauce, it makes it even.
What?
During this last round, for a joke, I went into the Chick-fil-A's and asked for a Sodom and Gomorrah meal with lemonade, and all the kids at the counter were laughing. So they got the joke.
Well, the company still says they will not discriminate against people, regardless of their beliefs, race, creed, sexual orientation, or gender, whatever. But that's for the company, the way they operate, as far as hiring and firing and treating customers, etc. But this whole issue about who the nonprofit gives to, I don't understand. I don't understand what the alderman's going to accomplish. You know what he's going to accomplish? He's going to keep jobs out of his ward when this company doesn't open, and he's going to rack up legal bills for the city and the taxpayers
that they'll lose and they'll have to pay,
because he's saying, well, okay, I can't. And experts are saying he can't stop them on because of their political beliefs, but he can't try to stop them with zoning.
One of the interesting things about Chicago's laws is that the zoning and the building codes and others are about 3 feet thick. So if you play ball with the political people, as you know, Jake, from years of covering this stuff, if you play ball, you can slide. And the moment you don't play ball, there's some kind of obscure law that they'll find. You have to have 4 sinks instead of 3 or something like that. And that's when they nail you.
Some years ago, quite a few years ago, a friend of mine had a building. And he was a couple slats in his porch. He was fixing one day. And the building, just a couple slats. They were not a whole rebuilding the porch, just a couple slats. Well, there happened to be an inspector going by. Said, oh, you need a permit for that, for a couple slats.
Inconceivable!
To nail in a couple slats.
So he had to go through the whole permit process. And he was just getting run around from this floor to that floor to this to that. So he said, "Could you help me?" So we go in, and right ahead of us, this one fine day, was somebody with the expansion plans for McCormick Place, which had to be a foot thick.
Right.
And the guy at the counter just kind of did one of those, like a deck of cards.
Like flippantly.
See how many, and he
right.
says, "Yep, passed."
Right.
Didn't look at anything.
Right. Well, that's how it works here. And I guess when it comes to freedom of speech, Chicago is a special place not covered by the Constitution. Because I guess you can't speak your mind. Look at what happened to Ricketts. Joe Ricketts, the founder, the old man who's the boss of his kids are the boss of the Cubs, was basically broken by Rahm Emanuel, who beat him up publicly for not liking Obama. Right?
But a year ago, Obama didn't support gay marriage.
Where was Chicky Moreno then?
Yeah. Was anybody castigating Obama for not supporting gay marriage?
Is there a pro-gay marriage chicken store that Moreno wants to put in there instead? I don't know. But I think it's basically, shut up, Chicago. If we don't like what you have to say, we'll use the government to shut you up.
And that doesn't seem right.
It's the Chicago way.
I understand it's the Chicago way. It just doesn't seem right.
No, it doesn't. But that's how they're going to play it. And it's wrong. Wrong.
And I'm surprised his constituents put up with that. I'm surprised the taxpayers would put up with that. In his case,
look at what they put up with all these years. They get look, we're chumbalones. They slap us in the mouth left and right, and we still come back for, "Please, sir, may I have another?"
See, I don't understand. You've got a business.
Right.
They're going to bring jobs, and it's either a good idea for the city or it's a bad idea. But how does it go from a good idea to a bad idea to a good idea? Now it's a bad idea again, not based on anything they're doing as far as the jobs or the building, but based on what a nonprofit is contributing or not contributing to. Anyway, 9:15, we'll answer that question and your calls. Time for traffic on the 5s on 89 WLS. 9:16, want to remind you that later this morning, we have your chance to win a pair of tickets to see the third-party debate with Larry King tomorrow night at the Hilton Chicago, hosted by Free and Easy. Free and equal. Not free and equal in Chicago when it comes to Chick-Fil-A. Take some calls, John.
Take them right away.
Roman in Chicago, good morning, sir. Welcome to 89 WLS.
Yeah, how you doing? I had a couple quickies for you. One is Ram, like I was telling your screener, isn't he getting paid X amount of dollars to manage the city of Chicago? If so, what the hell what's he doing in Florida campaigning? He's a campaigning flunky for Obama. He's being paid to do work here, not in Florida and all these other states he's campaigning in. That's number one. Or maybe we should deduct that from his stipend. Another one is Proco Joe, the chicken man. Now, I thought at first it was Poco, which in Spanish means little. So I thought maybe Little Joe. I thought maybe this guy's delusional and he thinks he's a Cartwright. Yeah, Little Joe Cartwright, and maybe the first word's a Ponderosa or something.
Boss.
But maybe you should change it from Proco.
Maybe he wants a Ponderosa to come to
Joe.
Chicago.
That's his chicken. But what does Proco mean? That was my second question.
John, you want to handle those?
Proco, I have no idea what it means, okay? But we're going to call him Chicky from now on.
Call him Pollo. Pollo is Spanish for chicken. Call him Pollo Joe.
I saw him at City Hall a while back after this last round of the chicken fillet thing, and he's like, "What do you call me again?" I'm like, "You know what I call you." He's like, "What do you call me?" I said, "You know." We had a little moment. Not a hug. But it was I don't think he was too happy. But Chicky is the name for him. Now, the question is, can he get some kind of pro-gay chicken sandwich or maybe a steak sandwich place to come in and bring some jobs? And what does this mean for our restaurant, Jake? Weren't we thinking about having a restaurant?
Yeah, we made a food truck. We're going to take a food truck and go to North Dakota. And maybe sooner than you think, John.
Okay. All right, call me when you get there.
And to answer the first part of his question about Emmanuel being, going to campaign over the weekend, public officials like that get paid X amount of dollars.
A salary.
And there's no 40-hour week minimum or requirement like that. It's they get paid to do the job. And if he takes time on the weekend, if he wants to take the money and go to Brookfield's, his time to go to Brookfield Zoo, he can. If he wants to go to Florida to campaign for the president, he can.
Right. I don't think there's anything wrong with him doing that.
Now, if he were down in Florida and there was a big blizzard hit Chicago this past weekend.
Oh, we'd have a good column and a show.
Yeah, and the traffic couldn't get around the city, then that would be different. But it wasn't.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. Basically, in Chicago, shut up. The lesson is shut up unless we tell you can talk.
Paul on the West Side. Good morning, Paul. Welcome to 89 WLS.
Hey, good morning for a Monday. I'm just curious why the Democrats seem to think that when Mitt Romney has a change of a point of view from maybe 10 or 12 years ago till now, and they castigate him in the news, yet the Democrats have no problem with Obama saying, I'm for gay marriage now, even though he wasn't before, and they use the term evolve, as if no one else can evolve or no one else can change their point of view.
You know how you evolve in Chicago, Paul? You go down by the lagoon in Lincoln Park, and you sit there for about 60 to 90 minutes in the late afternoon, and you contemplate and you evolve.
Hey, I got a real quick joke if you want to hear it.
As long as it's clean, Paul.
It's very clean. Joe Biden is jogging through the woods.
Get ready with the dump button. Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm right. I'm cool. He jumps. I mean, he's jogging through the woods. He comes across a kid with a box. He says, "Hey, kid, what's in the box?" The kid says, "Oh, I've got brand new puppies." And he says, "Oh, did you name them yet?" He goes, "Yeah, I call them Democrats." And he said, "Oh, cool." So a couple days later, he's jogging with Obama in the same woods, sees the same box. He thinks, this will be cool for him to see. So he run over to the box. They say, "Hey, kid, what you got in the box?" He goes, "Oh, I got brand new puppies in the box." And he goes, "Yeah, what did you call them?" He goes, "Oh, I call them Republicans." And he's curious. He's like, "Well, wait a second. A couple days ago, you said they were Democrats. Why'd you say they were Republicans?" He goes, "Oh, they got their eyes open now."
Not very funny, Paul.
Paul,
That's
that
okay.
really kind of not was funny, but
that was a waste
the whole
of a
thing.
minute.
The whole thing about at least it stopped. It was merciful. He stopped after a minute. But the one thing Paul did bring to the show, the whole notion of evolve. That's where you find inherent news bias. Okay, in newspapers. Newspapers generally call liberals who change their minds. They say they use the word evolve because if you change your mind to a more liberal point of view, you become a higher order of being. Apparently, you're evolving from, say, lower primates to opposable thumbs.
That's John Cass. I'm Jake Hartford. 921. Back after this.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
89 WLS.
Report road incidents to the 89 WLS traffic tip line so everyone can stay informed. Call 312-984-CARS, 312-984-5277.
928.
Jake Hartford and John Cass in for Bruce and Dan, 89 WLS.
And I want to take a moment, again, to remind people that, Don Wade is undergoing treatment. He had surgery a few weeks ago. The treatment started this past week. It's supposed to go for 6 weeks. It's tough treatment, and we want to remind you that that's why we're in for Bruce and Dan, because Bruce and Dan are in for Don and Roma. If you wish to send get well wishes, and there's always the initial flurry where there's a lot, and then it kind of drops off. Well, I would send them to getwelldone@gmail.com or go to our website, WLSAM.com, and you can find links and you can get wishes to them there.
Or you could go to your house of worship, too, and light a candle and say a prayer for Don and Roma, because this is the time when I wish they were here so much, because we've got debates, we've got Jesse Jackson robocalls. They'd have loved it.
Yep, and tonight is the big debate, and we're going to preview that in the next hour. KT McFarland will be with us for a little bit. When we come back, we're going to talk about Jesse Jackson Jr.
Acting like a human.
Acting like a candidate for office, like he is.
Like many humans, he said.
Yeah.
Way to go, Jess.
And we're going to talk about that high-speed train the other day. That and a whole lot more as we continue right here. Jake and John in for Bruce and Dan on 89 WLS. Now at 9:30, here's news, weather, traffic.
President Obama and Governor Romney take to the stage in the foreign policy debate. Tonight at 8 on your Common Sense election headquarters, 89 WLS.
Like many human beings, a series of events came together in my life at the same time, and they've been difficult to sort through. I am human. I'm doing my best, and I'm trying to sort through them all.
That's Jesse Jackson Jr. on what is they call a robocall, which is where the candidates record something and then they automatically start dialing people's homes.
It's really good to know that he's human. And like many humans, a series of events came together in his life at the same time, and they've been difficult to sort through. Like your money guy getting indicted, like a grand jury, like investigations, like the girlfriend with the porpoise and all that. And
it's not illegal to have a girlfriend with a porpoise.
No, it's not. But it might be an issue if you're flying her back and forth to Chicago. You know, how did she fly back and forth? With what money? That's the issue.
Well, until indicted, he's still innocent until proven guilty.
He is, but I think...
Even indicted, he's still innocent until convicted.
Because
yes.
an indictment is no indication of guilt.
No, it's not, as
but
we learned in Blago's case.
But the thing is, what is with the hiding out? He's hiding out from the constituents, and then he gets caught at a bar, apparently. Some internet reporter found him at a bar with two women who were, he said, lobbyists, and then he's smoking a cigar on the front porch, and now he's back at Mayo. What's going on here?
Well, he wouldn't be going back to Mayo if the doctors didn't think he had to go back to Mayo.
Or unless he talked to the doctors and said, I have these symptoms XYZ, and these symptoms are such that I have to be...
Because Mayo is not one of those, she Hollywood types where if you have money, you get in for whatever you want to get in for. Mayo was legit.
Yeah. The psychiatric issues are often open to interpretation. But the cynic, the good person in Jake and John, the good people inside us, hope all the best for him. And if he's ill, that he gets treatment, et cetera, et cetera. But what about the little cynic on our left shoulder? What does he say?
Well, you know what? People get the representation they deserve. And if the people in his district are unhappy with what's going on, they will not vote for him come November 6th. But if they're happy with him, they're going to have him for another 2 years unless he decides to drop out and give the seat to his wife.
Or what if he drops out the minute he's elected and his dad says, no, not the wife, the brother? That's real democracy. That could happen. Or Joe Barrios, who's got he's in the news again this week with more kids on his payroll.
He doesn't have not kids on his payroll.
Yeah.
That was Tim Evans, the chief judge, has kids on his payroll.
Dan Michalopoulos at the Sun-Times did a story with Evans' kids on hiring his own daughters and...
If you can't hire your own daughters, who can you hire, John?
When you go from 36,000 to 96,000, that's called working hard for the taxpayer.
Who knows a person better than a father about his kids, whether they can do the job or not? And who's better going to protect the father and do a good job but the kids?
Yes, and it's a family business, so it's not really politics, it's just family business.
Don in Naperville. Good morning, Don.
Hi there, guys. I was just calling to say, why are you picking on Jesse? He's a poster boy for the Democratic Party. He's a minority, and he's disabled. I mean, we couldn't ask for anything better.
I don't mention the fact his minority status is immaterial right now. I mean,
no, of course
the
not.
status is that what's important is he's got feditis. You know what feditis is, right, Don? That's when you have a grand jury looking at you, and it causes nausea.
They got to check his land deals in Peoria or whatever the hell, Peatone. They haven't got to that yet.
I don't think he bought anything there.
See, that shows he's honest, right, Dan? Don?
Oh, yeah.
See,
he's just an honest
guy.
There
you go. Yeah, if he doesn't have... What kind of politician is that would be pushing for the third airport in Peatone and not buy any land for himself?
I think the land on the outside of that footprint, if I remember the Tribune correctly, was bought up by a lot of the Daily guys. at that moment, or at that time years ago. Right on the edge of the footprint.
And they're probably suffering for it right now. Can't get rid of it.
I think it's still a golf course.
Value's gone down. Hey, speaking of moving and traveling, remember we talked about the train Friday?
Right.
The historic train from Chicago to St. Louis, high speed, was going to go 110 miles an hour.
Because I think the image in my head was of Dick Durbin's face being stretched by amazing G-forces.
I read 3 different stories. I read the Sun-Times Saturday.
Right.
They claim as the train was getting up to 110, it got very shaky, very bumpy, and the governor was holding on for dear life. Okay? I read the Tribune account. It was smooth as silk. Not a bump. Okay.
Right. You could put a cube of Jello on his forehead and it would have moved.
But it said they only went for about 5 minutes at 110. It was a 15-mile stretch between Dwight and Pontiac, and I was trying to do the math, and the math didn't work. But then yesterday, I read Mark Brown's column in the Sun-Times, and he was kind of in between. Some bumps, whatever.
A bump in the road.
But this thing that Governor Quinn said Friday when they reached 111, because they were going to go 110, he said it was historic. Mark Brown said they did this 10 years ago over the same stretch of track between Dwight and Pontiac. It's not the first time the train between Chicago and St. Louis has gone 110.
So what's Mark Brown doing on the train?
He had a nice ride. Well, he favors trains and the future of trains, but I appreciate the fact that he brought out the fact that
I do too.
This is not the first time they've gone 110 over that stretch of road.
What a waste. I mean, good column, and Mark's a good columnist. And my hat's off to him for finding that little nugget out.
And the other nugget he had was he doesn't know how, they didn't say how much of the $2 billion they got's already been spent.
They will spend, if you gave them your last $10, they'd spend it and ask you for more.
But if they're going to do the whole route,
amazing.
They're going to need billions and billions more.
Right.
If that doesn't come from the feds, then it's going to have to come from the state, which doesn't have money. Or we're just going to have this 300-mile track thing where you can only go 110 during a 15-mile stretch.
I'm surprised Jesse Jr. wasn't on that train, just to stretch out his face a little bit to relax it.
Train to nowhere. 9:44, back after this.
89 WLS.
Coming up today, 2 on Rowan Roper will be the last free debate. Plus, Lou Canellis on the big Monday night matchup with the Bears. Rowan Roper, afternoons 2 to 6, 89 WLS.
89 WLS has your tickets to the third party to debate, moderated by Larry King, tomorrow night at the Hilton Chicago. Right now, caller 15 at 312-591-UULS. That's 312-591-8857. Will win a pair of tickets to the event from Free and Equal and 89 WLS.
Hip, hip, hooray!
9:51, John Cass, Jake Hartford, in for Bruce and Dan.
Anything happening tonight?
Something. Debate.
Debate.
You got the debate. One last thing about the train. There was an accident yesterday. A train went off the rails. Amtrak. It was the train the Wolverine that goes between Chicago and Detroit.
It was Bush's fault.
Well, the question I have, did it happen where they can go 110 miles per hour? Because almost half of that corridor, close to half, I believe, they're rated to go 110 miles per hour. They got to do some track issues and whatever, and they have this nasty thing called freight trains that are getting in the way, which stops the speed. And like getting through Gary sometimes takes 90 minutes, which defeats the whole purpose of having a train that goes 110 miles per hour. Because it's basically the same distance as Chicago to St. Louis it is to go to Detroit. They're getting basically the same ridership. And where they said if we had this high-speed train to St. Louis, it would cut the 5-hour time down to like 3. Well, this train is taking to go to Detroit almost 5.5 hours. And that's with a good part of the tracks at 110 miles per hour. So that's not really cutting down a lot of the time.
It looked like the whole, put the politicians on the train story was a stunt, and that's it. I mean, because Who's got the money to spend to buy, super sleek trains?
We do.
Yeah.
Tom in South Holland. Quickly, Tom, you're on 89 WLS.
Chick and John, how you doing today? Number one, the ambiance of the train. That's why you take train rides in the first place. A lot of people do because it's a clickety-clack. It's a look over there. Look at the river. Oh, look at that city over there. 110 miles an hour. Look at the river. Look at the city. Look at the car. And the other thing is, if that thing crashes at 110 miles an hour, that thing better have some wings on it because I don't want to be rolling over at 110 miles an hour. And number three, have you been on 294 lately? You can just take your car, 110 miles an hour, nothing on 294. So take your car. Don't worry about the train. You got more control anyway.
That was fast. Thank you, Tom.
That was really fast.
Yeah, we asked for fast.
Almost as fast as my dad driving to Quebec in the Cadillac, and my brothers and I looking out the window in the 60s counting dead things. That's what we did. On the way, we'd count roadkill, and whoever had more roadkill won.
In the story about the train going to St. Louis the other day,
yeah,
when it reached the point where it was supposed to go from 80 to 110, it said for whatever reason it started to slow down. And the traffic on I-55, the cars were going faster than the train for whatever reason.
What nonsense.
9:54, back after this.
89 WLS.
Congratulations to Mark Parslow. He was caller number 15. He's going to go see the third-party debate tomorrow night, moderated by Larry King at the Hilton Chicago, brought to you by Free and Equal and 89 WLS.
It'll be an interesting debate.
You'll probably hear a lot more interesting ideas.
Right.
You do
you won't hear, the establishment parties, yada, yada. You'll hear some interesting stuff.
When we come back, we're going to have KT McFarland, and we're going to talk about tonight's foreign policy debate and how the world has just gone nuts. I mean it. Back after this.